Welcome back in. We got whip around coverage coming to you right away. We've got multiple guests coming. This is the Up and Running Pod. Welcome back because whenever you get up and running, we're right there with you. Justin, it has been a little bit of time. I missed last week, but I'm so thrilled to be back. It's good to see you.
Man, glad to have you back. It has been a whirlwind of sports. The excitement for the tournament is alive and well, and it's been a good one so far. So really excited about what we got coming for you guys tonight. Super excited to dive into what has been one of the best tournaments so far. Don't forget to catch us on X at Up and Running Pod. I'm Bama Turk 46, and we got a show for you tonight, folks.
It's exciting. We've got a new guest that we've talked about. We've hyped up. Zach will be joining the show shortly. Austin's coming on. We're hoping to get Maddie B come on. So we're talking about March Madness. It's one of those exciting times of the year. People flood in office pools, taking off work. Vegas is always slammed. So this is an exciting time of year. You're talking about upsets, Cinderella stories. Justin, we got it all. But before we get into the big dance, before we get into what we're talking about, we're going to give y'all a quick whip around coverage. We got some turkey stats ready. We got to do better segment as we always do. This is going to be a bouncing around. Guests are going to be coming in and out of the show. We are super excited to bring this show for you. This is the one we teased, we talked about. It's finally here. Justin, I cannot wait. Start us off with a little whip around coverage. How about NASCAR? How was NASCAR?
So they had the Circuit of the Americas this past weekend in Texas. William Byron comes away with the win. It's road courses just aren't great. They're hard to watch. It's a big track. It's not as many laps. You get some good racing in there. Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch had a little bit of a dust up. He finishes in ninth this week. Christopher Bell finished second, but they had a little conversation afterwards. They were both Joe Gibbs teammates just a couple years ago. So as much as the NASCAR has been good this season, COTA did the same thing. It was a good race. Had some instances in there. Had some guys trying to push the limit. They got penalized. So on a road course, you can't cut the corner in all of the turns. So some guys get penalized for that. But all in all, I mean, listen, it's still good racing out there. You had fans turn up. But another exciting track, being and living in Virginia, living in Richmond, you've got 3 tracks within driving distance. You got Bristol, you got Martinsville. This week, we're coming to Richmond. They're going to have a great race here. It's a chance for my boy Kyle Busch to get a win. Short track racing is phenomenal. A lot of people like to watch the super speedways for the accidents, for the crashes, the mayhem that happens there in the last 100 laps. But at Richmond, Bristol, you're going to have that same kind of feel. They're figuring out these new vehicles. They're really racing tight. So I expect a lot of passing. I expect a lot of good racing. Hopefully Busch gets in the victory lane this week, and we'll see it. Might get out there Saturday afternoon for the Busch race. We'll just have to see. The racing under the lights. It is on Easter, so I'll be enjoying some Easter dinner and watching the races this Easter Sunday.
Yeah, night racing is always a great spectacle to watch. I remember my uncle was a big racing fan, and so I remember him talking about the night racing at Richmond and how excited he was. So I know Richmond's an exciting track for people to go to, definitely to see a race. But also, I know it's a good product on television as well. So I'm excited for Richmond. I'm excited for you guys to get out there and hopefully get a chance to go out there and watch the race.
Yeah, that should be exciting. So hopefully it's a good weekend.
Nice. So I know a lot of the fans were really excited. We're getting into March Madness soon. We know we had a lot of Tolman's tips for you. We've got some more, so stay tuned. We definitely are going to get into that. We're going to talk about that with some of our guests. But Justin, a lot of things happened in the golf world recently. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about Scottie Scheffler shot a 64 to come back from behind and get in the clubhouse early, post a number. 3 major top 10 contenders had a chance on 18 to make a birdie on 18 to force a playoff. Xander comes up short. Brian Harman can't get it done. Wyndham has one of the most epic lip outs you've ever seen. And no one can do it. And Scottie Scheffler's on an all-world tear, headed directly to Augusta and for the Masters. But last week, we had an interesting winner. Peter Malnati wins. And for those that don't know, he's going to get a lot of talk about leading up to Augusta. He plays with a yellow ball, which is unique and interesting. He's a bucket hat guy, kind of an all-world grinder, kind of been a journeyman and every man's type of player. Emotional win for him. He secures his tour card, and he also secures a ticket to Augusta National. And he said he's bringing the yellow ball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it should fit it right in, right? To beat to beat this field, a lot of things have been brought up about the fields this year. The comparison to Live Golf and their lack of size allows them to have better fields as far as top to bottom goes with some of the top players in the world. But he beat Cameron Young by 2 strokes. Cameron Young
Yeah.
is a good golfer. He needs to break through. But Xander was in that field. Lucas Glover was in that field. Billy Horschel's right there. I mean, these are guys that have played some
Sure.
great golf at times, have finished in the top 10 in majors. So, I just good for this guy to get good for Peter to get his card now. And what NASCAR, we just talked about racing, what NASCAR has lacked the last 20 years. Okay. Really since Earnhardt died. And I think Kyle Busch kind of has filled that role, is really having a villain. And for me, I think that not necessarily a villain on the PGA Tour, because there's a lot of those right now, both sides, everybody's hating on everybody, but just some personality. So a guy that plays with a yellow ball, or a guy that carries 5 woods in his bag instead of 6 wedges, just a different
unique
way to do it, right? Just another, like Jim Furyk, and this, it's not a lot, but Furyk's swing was talked about for years. Scheffler comes on tour. His swing talked about because it's just different. Those don't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. You're still getting to the ball at the same, you're still hitting the ball. But something, a yellow ball, like, that is just wild. Bubba Watson, a unique character,
Yeah. Homegrown
really
swing, Bubba Watson as well. He's never gone with a lesson or a swing coach. He does his own swing. I agree with you. I thought it was really interesting. And the tour has had that. You've had the major leaderboards, but then you've also had that out of nowhere, who is this guy winning the PGA Tour event? But it's an exciting thing because you get a chance to get behind the scenes. You get a chance to learn about these players. And there's a lot of feel-good stories. There's a lot of emotional stories. And this was definitely one of them. So shout out to him for getting a chance to punch his ticket to the Masters. And I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for the Masters show that we're going to have coming up. A quick reset. We are doing Whip Around coverage, but we are the Up and Running Pod on X at Up and Running Pod. Justin's handle there, mine as well. I say this every couple weeks. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in with us. Thank you for listening to us on your way to work, on your commute home, whatever it may be. But if you have not had a chance to catch us on video, please bookmark this episode, catch us on video, and see the ridiculous hat that Justin is wearing tonight. It is an Alabama Roll Tide ridiculousness type of a hat. We talk about his hat collection. You're going to see me in the same exact hat just about every single show, but Justin's wearing a new one every single time. His hat collection is legendary. Please do yourself a favor, have some enjoyment, and check out Justin's hat tonight.
Don't doubt him, baby. We in the Sweet 16. Don't doubt him. Here we go.
There's a Roll Tide. What are we, 8 minutes in? There it is. You're always going to have a Roll Tide reference. But to your point about the villains, real quick. So we're talking about that. That's something that is a do better segment as well, right? You talked about Malnati using the yellow ball, 5 woods versus 6 wedges. The segment this week is be yourself, be your own person. Don't be afraid to be your person. Be you, right? Go out there and do what you think is the right thing to do. Always be kind, be humble, be grateful. I say that at the end. That's my closing for the show. But that's another one is be confident in yourself. Be yourself. Don't be trying to be anybody else, because when you do, you're always going to fall short. Be the person you want to be. The only person that I'm telling you that I can compete with every single day is the person I was yesterday. I'm trying to beat that guy yesterday. I'm trying to be better than who I was yesterday. That's the only person that I try to compete with. And so that's my hashtag do better segment for this week. Be yourself, be kind, be confident in yourself, be humble, treat others with kindness because it costs you nothing.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I want the kids to know, look, we've all had our downfalls and our struggles, but the bottom line is this: it's not the easiest thing sometimes to do the right thing, but just do it. Just do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Understand that people have bad days just like we do, and as much as I like honking the horn at the person in front of me for going slow or not doing what I want them to do, you got to just leave it alone sometimes.
Sometimes we got to. So we're going to circle back to some of that. We are going to kick it off. We're going to kick off March Madness. We're going to dive right in. Going to hear a little bit about Justin. You're going to have guests come in and out of the show. We're excited to bring you this March Madness show. We are going to close with our horse racing segment and a few more whip around coverages, so stay tuned. But Justin, what a weekend. March Madness delivered. You won again. We had upsets. We had surprises. What stood out to you? I mean, what did you think of this tournament?
Well, so far, the biggest thing is you can't say that it's um, boring. You can't
Sure.
say that it's lacked fun. I mean, it is one of the biggest things that I noticed is there are still upsets happening, um, and they're not terrible upsets. It's fun upsets. Colorado
Yeah.
coming out there and handling Kentucky, Colorado State. Um, I feel like we've gotten into college basketball, college football. Like the playoffs are actually fun to watch, and NC State. I'm telling you, NC State. These games are not upset, folks. They figured out how to play basketball at the right time and are tearing it up.
NC State is good. NC State's a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure. We talked about that in the pre-show. In the pre-March Madness show, they ran the ACC tournament to get in, and that's been a big one. I can tell you, I definitely thought Kentucky was going down. I didn't think Kentucky was going to prevail. Oakland comes out and beats Kentucky, and so Oakland comes out and beats them. We did post our Final Fours up on X, so check it out if you haven't got a chance to see that. One of our first guests, Zach, was up there, lost 3 out of his 4 Final Four teams in the first opening round, which I thought was hilarious. I was rooting for Oakland, and it did knock down the big, bad Kentucky, who Matt was very frustrated to see them lose. But big upsets, like you said. But these are good games. These are good teams. Oakland played well. I thought JMU played really well. James Madison played really well. And so there were some big time and big swings. But there was also when the top teams needed to step up and play, they did, and they got it done.
Well, I think so. Just going through some of it. I mean, you got Houston played Longwood right here, an hour from where we grew up, Mike, 86-46.
Sure.
And everybody's like, well, that's not a game. Well, you know what, Mike? When we grew up, the 116 game was not a game. It was, you might have had one close every 5 years, but Houston comes in round 2 against A&M and struggles. James Madison beats Wisconsin by 11, a number 5 seed by 11, gets smoked by Duke. Like the teams that have the pedigree, okay, have shown up. Okay, the Big East has shown up in this tournament. All right, and one thing that I look at when I really, when you can really dive in is there are great coaches and there are great teams. Okay,
sure.
When we were growing up, Gonzaga was a mid-major. They weren't anything powerful, and now look at them. This is an off year, a number 5 seed, but they go smoke Kansas in round 2. They figured it out in tournament time.
Oh, big time.
The teams that are winning in this tournament have either absolutely figured it out, like the NC States, the Gonzagas of the world, or their pedigree is just, their coaches are kicking in, the players know what they're doing, they're ready to go, which begs the question, what's wrong with Kentucky? What's wrong with John Calipari?
That's a great point. And that's actually a great point, because I was going to say right before you asked that question was teams like that, they play well together. Basketball is a game of runs. And when you get hot late, you play well. But it just shows basketball has always been a team game. You can't win with individuals. You can't win with 5 individuals. And that's what Kentucky has done. It's a recruiting school. It is a 1-year stop for kids transitioning to the NBA because that's where they want to go. I think Matty B is one saying, whoa, we got a guest joining us.
Here we
Ladies
go.
and gentlemen, for the first time ever on the Up and Running Pod, Zach has joined the show. Zach, welcome to the Up and Running Pod. How you doing?
What's up, fellas? Proud of you boys. I've been listening to this. You guys have been kicking some butt, man. So I'm excited to be here.
Man, we're excited to have you for sure. We were actually just getting into the March Madness conversation. We were talking about why Kentucky hasn't been playing that well. And one of the things that Justin and I were talking about was you can't have 5 individual players. You got to play as a team. And Zach, I know you're a basketball coach. I've coached, and I know you're currently coaching as well. But talk about when you're developing young kids, and I know this is a question we didn't go over, but it kind of segues right into what we're talking about is Kentucky struggled in the tournament because they have 5 individual players that are going to play in the NBA, but they can't beat a team like Oakland that plays like a team.
Listen, we talk about the blue bloods a lot, right? Yeah. Everybody knows I love Carolina basketball, Duke, Kansas, UCLA, and Kentucky. We need to stop with this Kentucky talk, okay? Kentucky is not going to be successful in March Madness until Calipari goes. I'm sorry. He's the best recruiter in the country, but by far. He knows how to go into a kid's home and sell the dream of playing in the NBA. The problem is he's got ties to the NBA, and that's how he recruits. But if you look at the last 10 to 15 tournament winners, to your point, it's a team. Yeah. They've got seniors, they got juniors, they have transfers from teams that have been there before. They got guys who've been redshirted, 5th, 6th year guys. Calipari, he's taking one and dones. And I mean, if the NCAA changed the rule next year that they could leave midway through the season, they would. So you got a bunch of me first guys, and I'm not trying to put it on the player, but again, Kentucky is not what we've seen from Kentucky. It's not going to change until Calipari leaves. That's been my biggest takeaway from really the first weekend. It wasn't a shock. I don't personally like Kentucky, to be honest with you, so there might be a little bias there, but it's not a shocker when you build a team that way. Those young kids, if you think about it, they've been dominating the sport in their city and state. It takes them 3/4 of the year to even figure out the speed of the game. And then when they get in tournament time, I'm sorry, but that kind of pressure on those kids is just too much. You see these players develop like an Armando Bacot, 5th year senior. He's going to be number 1 in every statistical category when he leaves Carolina. And he's probably not the best basketball player in the country as far as a draft board. But I've played enough and seen enough and been fortunate enough to coach for these last 3 years. He's the best basketball player on the court at any given time when he stays out of foul trouble, right?
Right.
And that's a different game plan of a 5th year senior who is going to run the court, play both ends, and a bunch of kids who are trying to play one-on-one basketball and just hope they can outshoot an opponent.
But to your point there, I mean, that's his job, is to get the best players in, right? Nick Saban wasn't told, hey, get the second best players in because they're going to stay here longer. So 2 questions, all right?
Yeah.
2 questions. One, do you think the NBA – I'm a firm believer, and I have said this for years, that the NBA needs to change the basketball rule or something to be more like college baseball. If you commit to college, you have to be in 3 years after high school, and then you can go play. Or just let them go anyway, because these guys are already ready to play in the NBA, okay? Second question is, are you going to find somebody? Do you think that Calipari necessarily has to go, or does he need to use the transfer portal to get him a couple guys that have been there? Because really, truly, the difference is with the pandemic, okay, and that's not something that's going to happen all the time. It's over with after this year, I believe. But with the pandemic, you've got guys in there that are grown men now, okay? So they've been there 5-6 years. They're grown men playing against these little boys, and that's another problem there. I mean, you think about how much more physical you got from 18 to 20, much less 20 to 22. You've had a couple beers and maybe a shot of liquor, put some hair on your chest. But you definitely, the one and dones kill Kentucky. I agree with that. But he does what he's supposed to do as a coach. So I don't know that he needs to go. He needs to maybe bring in some transfers. Thoughts?
But to that point, though, and Zach, jump in here, but that point, that's why I think Kentucky hasn't played well. It's because he's just recruiting. He's not coaching.
So I don't think the NCAA can do anything. I think they care about everything else, right? Football and basketball, mostly football, and how can I get money? I think the talk track, and I don't know how the NCAA can control this, but if I'm a basketball coach in a D1 school, I'm trying to figure out how I can get the most NIL money for my players as possible, because the percentage of kids who can be a absolute stud in D1 and never touch an NBA floor is extremely likely. It's less than 1%.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
If you can start getting kids to stay for 4 years and sign, a lucrative NIL deal, one, that's a huge reason to stay. And two, you can convince them that you're going to make more money now than you actually will in the league.
Especially if they have to start in the G League.
Yeah. And,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go.
No, I mean, I didn't want to talk about Calipari this whole time because Kentucky's trash.
So let's move off on, right? So like,
Let's move
we
on.
definitely got to highlight the fact of we put out the Final Four picks. They were on X. For those that don't know, Zach is one of the group chat boys. We talk about things, but he's always known for bold predictions. There's never been a person who makes more bold predictions than Zach. He comes out swinging with 4 Final Four teams that I guarantee you were no one else's Final Four picks as well. Zach, talk to me how it felt when you lost 3 out of the 4 in the first round.
Yeah, I thought to myself, a chip in a chair. Okay. Listen, let's just be real honest here. Okay. You could pick anyone from the street and just say, pick these mascots. What's your favorite color? They have about the same odds as me. Okay. My logic when it comes down to these teams makes sense to me, right? And I still have one left. I think Iowa State's going to win the national championship. I think they have the defense to do it. They've got excellent coaching. They have a lot of depth. Those are 3 things I think that carries a team when you're trying to win 6 games in a row. It's concerning, okay? It's concerning that I have one left. I'll tell you something else concerning, boys. Okay, for me, maybe not so much you, Mike. Turkey, extremely concerning for me. Someone told me just last night, okay? For every hot dog you eat, it takes an hour off your life.
Well, we're in trouble.
I've been able to take it. Okay, I'm a little nervous about it. Am I going to stop eating hot dogs? No, this is America. I'm not going to stop. Does it make me nervous to think how many I've had? And here's the deal: we're talking a hot dog. What's the stats here? A hot dog that is what? Fresh. I'll eat a hot dog from a gas station. Okay,
Right.
I've seen you do it.
That's
I've seen you do it.
risking life right there.
I mean, are we talking about hot dogs with ketchup, mustard, relish? Or are we talking about? What about the hot dog, Joey hot dog eater guy? What's his the world record?
He knocks off 50 hours of his life every year. I mean,
he's dead. He's basically dead.
He's a ghost.
So those listening at home, Zach is shook because he's heard that eating a hot dog takes off a certain part of your life, and Zach has not been able to recover. So if you're driving, I please tell me you are safe, that you didn't swear off the road, busting out laughing, because I can tell you this is what we get a chance to enjoy every single day with Zach in the group chat. And so we're glad to bring Zach on. We've talked about him for a while. Zach, we're so thrilled you're here. So Cyclone Nation, Zach is backing you to go to the national title game. We all know it's not going to happen because he hasn't called a winner since he's been watching sports. So it's been an enjoyable time. What's a big thing from the Sweet 16 that you're looking forward outside of Iowa State, obviously? And we know you're rooting for Iowa State, but what's another matchup you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued with a lot of the ACC teams, to be honest with you. I think if you look at people talk about the ACC has been a watered down conference since the pandemic. They've had an 8-1 record in the first weekend, so they've had the most Sweet 16 in the last 4 years, and I think that's accurate. I truly think that Clemson Arizona game, I think Clemson has a chance to win that game.
Yeah, I do too.
Caleb Love, I'm still a little bit. My feelings are still hurt that he left the North Carolina Tar Heel program as the starting shooting guard and up 14 at halftime, and to lose the national championship and then jump ship to join Arizona. But he's a Pac-12 Player of the Year. He's the kind of guy that believes even if he's 0-12 is going to keep shooting the ball, and he can go for 40 any night. The problem with that is you can't really tame him, and even if he does go shoot like 46, 50% from the field and gets 40, that's actually going to hurt Arizona because all the other 4 guys are not going to get their touches, and you can't win a game scoring only 50, 60 points. So Clemson's defense, they're going to try to make it a half-court game. They're long, and I think when you look at the Final Four teams, this is why I like Iowa State so much. I'm jumping around here, but if you have a good defensive strategy and you care about stopping the opponents and keeping their average, if a team scores 80 points a game and it's 50 to 52, 2 minutes left, give me the underdog. Give me the defensive team. That's the team that's prepared to win. We almost saw WVU knock off Iowa last night. If you're a women's basketball fan, I just absolutely love to watch the game. I love Caitlin Clark. The Iowa Hawkeyes averaged like 98 points a game, something ridiculous like that, number one in the country. WVU held them to like 50 points with a few minutes left. They had a chance to win that game. Their star player hurts her knee, and they had foul trouble throughout. But that's what you can do. You can take the best player in the country. I don't think that's Caleb Love, but you can take the best player in the world, like Caitlin Clark. And if you have a really good defense that's aggressive, wants to press you the whole game, wants to make you feel uncomfortable, all of a sudden these players who just like to kind of chuck up the ball, they start looking around, and those other four guys are like, hey, man, this is you. This is what you've been doing for us all year. Not to mention, when they make shots, they create opportunities. So no, you're not getting those dunks underneath because you're driving and kicking. Any matchup where there's a lower seed involved and that team has a top 10 defense, I think going forward, that's what you're going to see if you want to put some money down.
So what do you make of NC State Marquette, with Marquette's number one player back from injury but not running at full force, even though Shaka played him almost the whole game, and NC State's just absolute will to win right now. No quitting them. I mean, Big Boy Burns is beating them up down low in the post. What do you make of that matchup?
Yeah, maybe a little biased, right? Born and raised Shaka Smart, watching him coach VCU all those years. I'm a huge Shaka fan. At some point, and we've already seen it with the Oaklands and all these other the Grand Canyon. Yeah, the Cinderella story does stop, and I think this is where it stops for NC State. They aren't this good, but they're just really hitting on all cylinders. I mean,
they're a hot team, right? Basketball's a game of runs, and you're talking about they're on a run streak. I think NC State's a little better than a Cinderella story. But I do think Shaka, that comes down to coaching. And Justin and I have talked about that on this podcast before, that coaching makes a big, big difference when it comes to these teams. And so I think they're running out of steam there with Shaka as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be close. I just think Marquette's just a better team. NC State's just they've done everything. They've over exceeded. I mean, they've 5 straight games to win the ACC title, and then 2 more. I think their run is done. And they could have lost last game. So I think their Cinderella story ends, and hats off to them. Again, if you're in the ACC, you know how to play when the lights are bright. So it's not shocking that they're there, but I think Marquette takes it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Shaka's coaching comes into play. Defensively, NC State struggles a little bit around the perimeter. Inside, their defense should be fine. But the other thing, I will tell you something I noticed against Oakland. Burns gets tired really quickly. I think he's exhausted, 7 games in 2 weeks. And one of the big things for him is getting back on defense to guard the post. And he is slow getting back. I was telling Brandy, it's one of those things that it's coming, but when is it going to come? When is that breakdown from so many games? So, the travel and all that going to happen? And I agree with you that it could happen this weekend. I still think you're right. It's going to be a close game. Don't call it a Cinderella story. They're in the ACC. They're used to this. They're just seated low, had an off season. But back to your point with the ACC, Duke and Carolina, is Duke hitting its stride with the way they've won the first 2 games? And is Carolina going to be ready to meet them in the final?
So, as always, Duke gets the easiest route to the Sweet 16. Okay?
That's biased.
No, let's face the facts. Let's look who they played. Duke definitely doesn't want to see Carolina, right? We've already seen this story.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Not just this year, but where's the big dog?
Whoa, we got another guest joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome,
Austin. What's going on?
Back to the pod. Austin is joining the Up and Running pod. We've had Zach on for a little bit, so for those that don't know, and the group chat guys know this, myself, Austin, Zach, we all went to Marshall University. Go Thundering Herd. Austin, welcome to the pod. It's good to have you and Zach both on here.
What's up, boys? Good to be back. Zach, good to see you, buddy. You're looking good.
Thanks, big dog. Here's the first question right off the bat. give or take the last 12 months, how many hot dogs you've thrown down? Just give or take. What do you think?
Oh, goodness.
Last 12 months, call it 2 a month, 24.
Oh, that's a day. You're fine.
He ain't even losing a day.
So apparently Zach jumps in and he says that if you if you eat a hot dog, you lose an hour or something.
Yeah, every hot dog you've consumed, and I'm assuming these are like the real, like kosher, like organic, straight from the deli hot dogs, you lose an hour of your life. So for all the 7-Eleven,
big bites, baby. Get the big bites.
Whatever other hot dogs we can get our hands on, I think that's probably a good 3-4 hours. So I didn't do the rough math, but I'm looking at probably a week short.
A week short? Yeah,
short
easy.
I probably deserve. So
yeah, I think it's a little more in the week. So
is that a week a year, Zach? Because it's definitely not lifetime. It's a week a year. Every year you lose a week.
Oh my god.
So Zach, before we let you go, man, one memory, one final thing you talked about in the NCAA. What's the tournament mean to you?
Honestly, man, basketball is my passion, and I just love to see these kids who know they're not going to play in the league just absolutely blood, sweat, and tears will do anything for their teammates. I tell my girls, it doesn't matter if it's the men's or the women's, just watch the passion of these kids because they're playing like it's their last game, and it's really fun to watch. I don't care who's playing. I just want to see these kids give it their all and go Cyclones, baby. Let's go.
Zach, his only Final Four team left is the Iowa State Cyclones. So before Justin closes with you, Zach, let me ask you, what do you like to put on your hot dog, and can you only have one?
If I have less than 3, something's wrong. Like, I don't know. I'm depressed or I don't know. I mean,
normally you eat more when you're depressed.
I'm a huge White Sox fan. Okay. So I've been able, my corporate office where I work for is in Chicago. So no mustard right off the bat. I love a good Chicago dog with the celery bun and the pickles and how they do that. I'm not much of a ketchup person. If I want to get wild, where most of my hot dogs are consumed, which is in a bar, it's usually some kind of slop of like this chili sauce, onions. I asked the barkeep or whoever's serving it, what's the bathroom situation, and if they say it's good, I'll go 4. If they say it's all right, I'll probably go 3. But anything but ketchup, I'm good with. Love mustard. Yeah, we're good.
Baseball All-Star game, we got to do a hot dog show. Just absolutely have hot dogs while we do it. Zach,
oh man,
I know you're rooting for number 2 Iowa State out of the East, but with the exception of Carolina, because that's your faves, do you have anybody else that you could think can make a run to the final and win it?
I'm gonna be real honest with you, man. I hate to say it because that hat is ridiculously stupid, but I'm
don't doubt them, baby.
I'm very concerned with Carolina's matchup against Alabama because I think if you can keep Armando Bacot off the glass, you're asking RJ Davis to make 30 points. And I know Ingram can shoot. I know the kid, which they got transferred from Notre Dame, he's a shooter. But we're still a young team, and they go as Bacot and RJ Davis go. And Carolina struggles with teams that can match how they run. And Alabama can run up and down the court like Carolina, and that's where they get a little bit of trouble. So I'm a little bit if I had to put money on it, I would be nervous if I had to do it because my heart would say Carolina, but I think if I was trying to make money, I think Alabama makes the upset, to be honest.
Hey, we'll take you for the next 2 weeks as a fan, baby. We'll take it all day long. Sure.
So Zach, we appreciate you coming on. I know Cyclone Nation is definitely supporting, and you got Zach in your corner. Zach's definitely gonna be watching the Carolina-Bama game close and probably having a hot dog or two. So for all the listeners, you got to finally experience what we get to experience day in, day out, which is Zach. We'll have him back on the show. Zach, appreciate you jumping on.
All right, guys, it's been real. I'll see you soon.
Buddy.
Big dog, Kurt, Mike.
See you, man.
Love you guys. See you.
See you, buddy.
Oh man, that is the absolute character. That is Zach.
That was great.
So Big Dog, man, we appreciate you jumping in. I know you enjoyed the hot dog conversation. You should have seen when you first laid it out there. I mean, it hit us all by surprise. So we all had to experience that. We all got to come back together and do some type of hot dog show. What a ridiculous thing. But what else are you going to expect? It's Zach. It's a live show. We're going to get
exactly what I expect right there.
That's Zach in a nutshell. I didn't have hot dogs on my bingo card. I'm going to be honest with you. I know opening day is coming up, and don't get me wrong, $1 hot dog day is the best one at the ballpark. But I was thinking basketball. I wasn't thinking hot dogs.
None of us were. I mean, Turkey's mouth is salivating right now just thinking about hot dogs. I'm surprised he didn't have his wife go make one and bring him one. I mean, with his ridiculous hat he's wearing. So, again, we are the Up and Running Pod. We're glad to have Austin back on the show. The Big Dog is joining us again. For those that don't remember, or if you missed it, we had the OT debate, Austin and I. We went through the OT from the Super Bowl, and we debated on that. Austin's full of sports knowledge. He's a sports worldwide connoisseur. He gets into all sorts of things. We're definitely going to have him back on in a couple of weeks when we do our Masters preview show. But Austin, take us into March Madness. I mean, how excited were you for this tournament? Because I thought this opening weekend delivered.
You know, it really did. I was excited for this tournament because I thought we were going to have chaos upon more chaos and more chaos. So that was actually my only kind of letdown of the tournament was all the favorites won. And as a guy that likes to play underdogs, that wasn't so great for me. But I am excited. Typically, the first weekend is my favorite. But, man, with the heavyweights we've got this weekend, this is going to be the best weekend of college basketball I think we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, so with that being said, with some of the big dogs coming out and showing, going back to the ones just dominating, some of the twos dominating, some big games there. When you look at, Zach brought up NC State as a Cinderella story. When you look at Grand Canyon gets beat by Alabama, it's one of those teams that's been there. But in the first round, Grand Canyon comes out and beats St. Mary's. Where do you put a St. Mary's team that's been there before? It's a name that we know. It's not Gonzaga style yet, obviously, not even close. But when they come out and just do it up, is this going to be a one-time thing for Grand Canyon, or as someone who likes to bet the underdogs, are you hoping they make this, a kind of residual thing year in and year out and work their way up to a 5 seed or a 4 seed?
I think they've got a lot of staying power. That said, it's all dependent on their coach. They got Bryce Drew, the kid from Valparaiso, who hit the buzzer beater back in '97. Yeah. Remember, I think he's a heck of a coach. He really has done a good job of kind of building that program from scratch. So as long as he stays there, I think they're extremely viable. I did not realize this, and I don't know if y'all saw this, but apparently Grand Canyon is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So depending on how their stock does, the stock price can go up. So it does actually offer a weird potential NIL thing where they could actually offer players real stock, and the better they do, the more money they make. So I think there is some potential NIL there as a smaller school. But no, I think they definitely have some staying power. Arizona's obviously got a lot of talent in basketball as it is. And with Bryce Drew, I think they definitely could be around for a while.
And that's what we're bringing you here on the Up and Running Pod. You're talking about, what do you know, nuggets like that Grand Canyon trades in the stock thing, bringing Zach hot dog things. I mean, we're bringing everything to you. We're a wide range kind of podcast here. We're covering everything for you guys. And so what a treat this show is for the listeners. I mean, who knew you're going to get stock prices based on a basketball game, and Zach eats 4 hot dogs asking what the bathroom situation is. I mean, all in the same place. Well, you can't get any better than this.
No. Austin, so you have a vast sports knowledge, and I love it. But when you go back, and I know there hadn't been a lot of, double-digit seeds up in here, but, I mean, is this, in the last 5, even 10 years, one of the best Sweet 16s that we've got available as far as pitting the, Houston and Duke versus each other, and then you come down and you've got NC State and Marquette?
I can't remember – as long as I've been following this, and I've been following it pretty closely, for the better part of 25, 30 years, I don't think we've ever had this high a seed. I mean, to call NC State a Cinderella, I don't know. They won the ACC tournament. That doesn't really seem Cinderella-y to me. And then
exactly. That's coming from Zach.
You've got Clemson as the other quote unquote big C, but they were 6, and they were ranked 13th this year. So there are no real Cinderellas. San Diego State was in the title game last year, so they're not a Cinderella. And you already mentioned it. Turkey Gonzaga is not a Cinderella. So
Sure.
I think in terms of potential matchups, I mean, and you look at the spreads in Vegas, everything's, less than 5 points except for, UConn, just because they're a machine all amongst themselves. But man, I don't think we've ever had this many potential really good games in a Sweet 16.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think NC State's a Cinderella either. I mean, they had to win an OT game against Oakland. I thought Oakland was actually going to pull that out and keep their Cinderella alive, which I think we would have had a Cinderella situation in that one. But Austin, you and I have camped out and watched all the games in both opening days, right? We've done the Thursday, Friday together, and it's been a grind to get through it. And I know this year was a grind too. But I agree with you. I think this is probably the most packed with low seeds. Or with your higher ranked seeds, however you want to go about it, but that we've seen in the Sweet 16s. I expect there to be dogfights because I can tell you some of the top seeds have really surprised me. I think Purdue has blown out their opponents, and I did not expect that to happen. I don't think Purdue is that good, but Purdue has been rolling. Houston had to get by an A&M in a dogfight, but you could also see that as a rivalry game as well, being with how close the schools are. So I could see people getting up for that one, but it's going to be a jam-packed Sweet 16 for sure.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, the number you could see it. You can talk yourself into all of the ones getting upset on this weekend, and then I mean the other matchups are all 2-3s, and those aren't upsets. So those are going to be some great games. We didn't get a true buzzer beater in the first two rounds. I think we're going to get at least one, if not a couple, this week, because there are going to be a few shots in the air to win it, and hopefully a couple of them go down.
Outstanding. So a big contrast for our listeners, right? And I know we're going to get into, Justin's got another thing we're going to get into with Turkey stats as well. But for our listeners, a big contrast from Zach. Austin, you have all 4 Final Four teams still alive and kicking, where we saw Zach lose 3 out of 4 in the first round. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Or do you only have 3? You had Kentucky.
I did have Kentucky, so
okay.
That one hurt me, but I was on Oakland plus 650, so that one kind of softened the blow a bit.
Had to play the hedge there. So, yeah, you and Zach got to be connected somehow. So you guys both lost the Final Four team in the first round. So we got that there. But nice job on the hedge. So 3 out of 4 left, and that's gonna be a big one. I think UConn's your overall winner, which UConn looks really good and is a powerhouse going forward. Before we get into some more of the stats, Austin, share with the listeners, because I know this, but share with the listeners, you have a long-standing tradition with March Madness, specifically with the Final Four. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I actually stole this from my brother. Him and a couple of his fraternity brothers started this up back in 2010, and they go to the Final Four every year. They've been every year minus the COVID bubble year. So this will be lucky number 12 for them. I've been fortunate enough to go on 6 of those trips with them. Twice to New Orleans, twice to Houston, Minnesota, and a Dallas one. So I've been fortunate to go 6 times to the Final Four and the national title game, and even more fortunate than that, I think I've got the 2 best games ever, potentially ever in college basketball. I was live for the Carolina Villanova title game in 2016 when Marcus Page hits the 3 to tie it with 5 seconds, and then Chris Jenkins with the walk-off game winner, which I think is the best college game ever. I don't know what else would really rival it. Unbelievable. And then Mills, I know this one was special to you, but the New Orleans Final Four 2 years ago, we were there for Coach K's last game, and it was Duke Carolina in the Final Four. And you talk about an experience, an atmosphere unlike any other Final Four. The Final Four is big enough, but you put Duke Carolina in there, and it was unreal. It was the greatest, probably the greatest college sporting event I've ever been to. And I've been to national title games, a bunch of SEC games, but a Final Four Duke Carolina, wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and Coach K's last game, that's got to be that ticket's worth a lot of money, Boston. A lot of money for that ticket.
I can tell you, Justin's got the goosebumps popping up on his neck because I think out of the two people that I know who care about college football, or college sports the most outside of myself, are sitting right in front of me now with Turkey and Austin. So I know that struck something with Justin there. So
yeah. So all right, we've talked about. I mean, I don't know how you top those 2 memorable experiences, but what I looked at this past weekend, great games, right? So ready for the move to come on. You look at what Houston had to do against Texas A&M. Texas A&M had like 43 free throws and made half of them, right?
Yep.
Do you think Duke, and Zach just said it before he got off, that they have the easiest path? Is Houston as good as advertised, or are they good because of the conference they play in? And now they're going to meet a Duke team who isn't what they normally are, but is played well enough in the first 2 weeks to come away, or the first 2 games to be ready to go. Do you think Houston is going to struggle on Thursday? Yeah,
I do.
Thursday or Friday?
I have Duke. I picked Duke to upset Houston in my bracket, so I did pick that one. Houston to me is the biggest enigma in this entire tournament, and it's purely because they don't make a lot of shots. And
they can't score enough points. Yeah,
they can go cold, and we saw it in the Big 12 championship where they went almost 20 minutes of game time without a bucket, and Iowa State runs them out of the gym by 35. And that pretty much solidified what my thought on Houston was. If they're making shots, I think they probably are the best team in the country because they play defense better than anybody. But, man, they can go cold, and they do it a little too often. And if A&M could have made some free throws, they probably should have won that game. And I think Duke's going to get them. Duke seems to be playing above their head so far this tournament, better than I've seen them play in the regular season. So I
agree wholeheartedly.
But if Houston's making shots, they're going to be tough. But I just don't trust them to make those shots.
All right. It's hard to play. It's also to that point though, real quick, Justin. I think it's hard to continually play great defense when you're not making buckets, right? When you're not making buckets and you're a great defensive team, it's hard to still get up and play great defense. So I think that's going to be a hard pick. I picked Houston to go to the Final Four. I'm hoping that they just don't get cold and play that, and that defense carries them and defense wins games. I'm also not a Duke fan at all, so I'm going to pick against Duke every single time. Brandy, you heard it here first. I'm always rooting against Duke. But I can tell you, I think it's hard. It's phenomenal when a defensive team gets, key buckets, but it's hard to keep getting up minute after minute after minute to play that great defense when you're not scoring.
Well, to that point, I mean, it's just like, you talk about college sports in general. It's like college football. If you go out there and your offense isn't scoring and the defense is on the field for 3/4 of the game, well, they're going to get pissed off. They don't want to be there. And in basketball, it's different. You're playing both sides, but you get dejected, especially if you got someone jacking them up and just didn't pouring it in. With that being said, I just got word that we do not have anybody after you, Austin. So if you give us a little bit of time, I wanted to bring this up with Austin, Mike, because you and I kind of differ on this. What side of the line do you fall with the picks in the tournament? Houston struggled against Iowa State. Did they deserve a number 1 seed for who they played? Yes. But does the eye test bring you anything in picking the seeds for these tournaments and who you put in versus a 5th ACC team or another mid-major team? Do you think the eye test can work in college basketball for March Madness?
I do. I think the eye test does matter. This year, there was the whole debate of mid majors. I know Turkey, I'm sure you were hurting when your Richmond Spiders lost that first round because I think they deserve to be in over somebody like a Virginia, Colorado State, somebody like that. So this year, unfortunately, the big guys got all the bubble spots. So I do think the eye test matters. I think I think we need to keep the automatic qualifiers. But I think we need to. Something needs to be tweaked, and I don't know if the conferences would ever do it. But you made the point on your last podcast. The regular season to me needs to matter more. I mean,
agreed.
I think the Ivy League has done it where the conference tournament actually doesn't determine if they go to the regular season for who gets their bid. And I think with some of these smaller schools, the one bid leagues, it's to me you got to put more on the regular season.
Yeah, listen. I'm with you. And so it's interesting you have that point in, and we haven't discussed this, and it wasn't on the show sheet either. But what we were talking about, Justin and I, was I'm of the mindset of you've got to reward the regular season efforts. You've got to reward a team that wins their regular season, like a Richmond, right? But they may lose the first round or second round of their conference tournament, where the only thing that mattered for that conference was whoever wins the tournament gets in. And I think that's tough because now you've said the regular season tournaments, the regular season is invalid. My solution kind of was, I don't think the eye test can work in basketball because it gets streaky so many times, hot and cold. I don't think eye tests work because in my mind, the NCAA tournament is for, like you just said at the beginning, was chaos. That's what drives the NCAA. That's what drives March Madness. That's what gets ratings up is this. So if that's what the NCAA goal is, and I'm not saying I know what their goal is or I don't, but when it comes down to it, when in doubt, if you have a 5th, 6th ACC team or a mid-major that's a regular season winner that did what they needed to do during the regular season, but they might have lost their conference tournament, if they're close, I'd always give the tie or give the close one to the mid-major because that's where the Cinderella comes from. That's when it's exciting. You don't want to see UVA show up in the tournament and get blown out by 40. I'd rather see the mid-major have a chance because the thing about that is those schools will travel and they will be there.
Yeah. So, and Mike, I agree with that point. And the reason I wanted to bring it up with Austin is he's going to have more knowledge on it than we have than I have as far as what teams really look good and don't. So, and this isn't a mid-major school, but you take the Big East kind of is. It's the Big East is a little bit different because it has been prominent in basketball for years. It's not a new thing for them. But you take a team like St. John's or Seton Hall, who they're not the best. It's tough. They had 4 teams go to the tournament. All 4 of them have won through so far, or 3 teams. They're 6-0 right now. Okay, I don't know how you look at it when St. John's losses are to all of the teams in the tournament. They hung up with UConn. I mean, they were right there in 2 out of 3 games. They lost all 3, but they're competitive. So for me, the eye test says that St. John's should have been in and Richmond should have been in, which would be a mid-major there. So the UVA thing, I mean, Austin, if you can shed some light, like UVA's record isn't terrible, but if you look at it with your eyes that the Lord gave us, they suck. I mean, they have no reason to be in this tournament. And I like UVA. I want them to be there. Got some friends that are huge fans, but their reason for being in the tournament is because of the conference they play in and not for what they look like on the court. And the comparisons to football, I think the eye test can give you an idea when it comes to teams like that. Granted, they finished 3rd in the ACC, but that's not that 3rd place in the ACC is a little bit watered down because the ACC just isn't the ACC. I don't care what North Carolina's doing. That's one team. Normally the ACC is dominating 7, 8, 9 deep, and UVA is not hit or miss. They're just miss, and they were lucky to win a lot of games, but they played subpar opponents, and you saw that in their first round game when they scored 14 points in the first half. What are we doing?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think especially as we go to the new starting next year when we've got the new for college football alignments where we've got these 16 team conferences. So it's going to come down to these, the 8th best team in the Big 12 or the ACC, the SEC, something like that. And they don't deserve it over the Big East. The Big East was definitely a better conference this year. They're proving it in the tournament, like as you said, 6-0. So I think some of these bigger schools and the Big 12 got accused of doing it, and I don't believe they have anybody left in the Sweet 16 at this point. They got Iowa State, so they only got one left, but they lost everybody else. So that they're kind of playing each other, and it bumps up the value and their standing, their rankings, those kind of things. But I'm with you. I think you have to actually watch the games, watch ball control. Who's got the lead more time than not? I know they've got game control with the college football. I don't know if they do that, have that stuff for basketball, but they should. I think there needs to be something more because especially as we get to these bigger conferences, the 10th best team in the ACC, that would have been the equivalent of the 4th best team in the Pac-12 or something like that, where they deserve to be in, or they don't deserve to be in. But because they're now in the ACC and they went to Carolina and they only lost by 10, that's somehow a quality opponent. No, you got to win games. I
exactly.
think JMU proved it. Hey, I think they were one of the most popular upsets. They won 30 games this year, and you know what? They went out and they whipped up on a average Wisconsin team who appears to be severely overseeded just because they played in the Big Ten. So I think we need to. There needs to be something more that's done that way. And I think that the showings of some of these big schools, if you will, in the play-in rounds and then some of the early no-shows, I think it's going to shift a little bit more, and I think there will be some more focus on it. It took a long time, but I mean, the Mountain West, they're not any good, but they consistently are getting 6-7 teams in, and it's because they harped on it for so long. And I think if the Atlantic 10, the Big East, keep kind of doing that and pushing it, they'll eventually get there as well.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
So what kills me is the conference realignment is just killing college basketball. It's helping college football because, in my opinion, I think you're getting the best teams playing each other more often. You're getting better matchups. But I just, in my heart of hearts, and this is a different conversation, I wish college football would stop at conferences. Just you got to play, you just got to pick your teams and play them, whatever. But college basketball, the Big East is a basketball conference. And the A-10 truly is a basketball conference. And those two conferences, I've watched the A-10 so much. Dayton's in there. You've got Richmond, you've got VCU, you've got these teams that are really good basketball programs with history that aren't going to compete year in and year out with the Big East, with the ACC. But every few years, they'll have a team that can actually make a run. Shaka did it with VCU. But the Big East should be looked at like the SEC, the Big Ten in college football. And no, they're not going to compete top to bottom with the ACC every year. But the Big East has 2 or 3 of the most powerful teams ever in college basketball. Just look at what UConn's done recently in the last 10 years. You look at what St. John's used to be. You look at some of these teams that were there, Georgetown, the Seton Halls, that you recognize as a kid that were in this tournament, and you're like, who are they? They're not on Saturday. They're not on Thursday nights playing football. Who are these guys? But they would come out and have good basketball teams. And now, when the Big East broke up originally, when Virginia Tech left and Miami left, and now you see where they're getting disrespected. And the ACC they live on that name. And same thing with the SEC in football, but they live on that name. And to your point about the conferences getting that 8th team in, I mean, Wisconsin, there's no reason for them to be ranked fifth.
Here's my thing with that, though, and that kind of goes to my point, and this is kind of, we'll wrap this up here in a second, but that's what I'm thinking is that no one was really geared up and excited for the Michigan State, Mississippi State opening game, right? Yeah, we're excited for the opening game, don't get me wrong, but everybody was looking forward to the JMU Wisconsin. They're going to pull the upset, right? Is Oakland going to beat Kentucky? Everybody was on Colgate against Baylor, and I was on Baylor, but I mean, everybody was on Colgate to beat Baylor, and Colgate got blown out. But rarely does that happen when the 14 loses to the 3 that bad, right? You usually have a dogfight of a game, and JMU handled Wisconsin. And that's kind of what I was making the point of. Let a team like Richmond in. And do I think Richmond gets in if you didn't have so many big conference upset winners? Yes, I do. I think that their bubble got burst because you can say bids were stolen or whatever, but again, nothing's really stolen if you go out there and earn it, which to my argument would be, I think they did. They went out there and won the regular season. So I think we do got to find a way to reward the regular season. Maybe the 3 of us can brainstorm. We'll come up with it on the podcast of what the solution is. But I think we've got to get more mid-majors in the tournament. It just makes it more exciting. And I think the NCAA is looking to have a better product or keep a product growing where you're growing and getting more eyeballs on the sport because that turns into dollars.
Yeah, I think what they really need to do, kind of like the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Let's do the Big East A10 Challenge. Let's do the Mountain West, and let's. I mean, Fox
that's a great idea.
Already got the Big East, and they're putting those games on in prime time on Saturday. Let's get and that's what Gonzaga had to do for so long to get the respect that now they earn. Is that they had to go play these other kind of quote unquote small schools, if you will. So let's get Villanova let's get them to come to Richmond. Let's get VCU to go up to Storrs and play Connecticut. You're telling me that's not going to do a number? Game Day's not going to show up for that? Of course they are.
Oh,
that's a great point. That's a great point.
I love that, and I think, and I've said this since they started the playoff. That's the same thing they need to do in football. Big Ten, SEC Challenge every year. But no, I think Austin, you're right there with it. That's a great way to go there.
So Austin, before we let you go, second to last thing, how many times have you and I picked Gonzaga before they were getting that respect to be in the Final Four when they were a mid-major? I mean, you and I have live and died, as they say, with Gonzaga getting the Final Four.
I've ripped up more brackets that had Gonzaga and or Kansas in the Final Four national title than I care to admit to. It's It's like heroin. I can't shake it. It's just I got to put them. And this was the first year I actually picked both of them to get upset, and wouldn't you know it, they both won by 20. And I'm like, well,
Of course they did, right? Of course they did. So, all right, Austin, before we let you go, last question. I have not asked this of you yet. I'm going to find out the answer right here and now live on the pod. Austin, are you going to Phoenix for the Final Four?
I'm not going to Phoenix this year. They've got the Airbnb booked, so they will be there Friday. I'm not there. I will be in San Antonio next year at the Alamo Dome. So looking forward to taking a year off, but I'll be back at it next year.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So, Baby Bros, keeping the streak alive. Austin, man, thank you so much for coming on. We enjoy having you on the podcast. We're definitely hoping to get you on for our Masters preview show. But Austin, thank you so much for coming on. It's such a privilege to have you on the show. We appreciate you coming.
Appreciate the time, boys. Always good to talk to you. Take care.
Have a good one.
Justin, what a show. I mean, we're rolling with some guests here. I mean, this has been incredible,
Yeah, definitely enjoyed Austin. Dude, his brain is just full of knowledge that I don't have, so that was excellent. Zach, as always, is just hilarious, and it makes for a good show to have a little bit of fun and a little bit of seriousness, and not seriousness, but just knowledge put upon us there. Really would love to dive into, as we get further into these shows, dive into some of the GM stuff with yourself, and then just how, Austin would run college sports, and him and I mean, we could sit and talk about that for years about the ways to do it. So that was definitely interesting.
We got to have those boys on the pod again. Yeah. I also think we got to have them on at the same time because it just brings comedy. I mean, we talked about.
I think group shows are in our wheelhouse. It's definitely fun to have that.
Group chat boys. So I mean, honestly, here's the thing: the hot dog question. I even forgot to even ask Austin what he puts on his hot dog because I mean that's what we're going to ask everybody now. And Zach's made that staple. I mean that's how Zach is. And so, what a great show for everyone. We got some great insights from Zach. Austin talked about some teams he's like. You guys definitely got to hear the Final Four tradition that they have, which I think is incredible. He's been to about half the ones his brother has, but he has a streak every year. It's an incredible streak. And so, like you said, Justin, it was a cool thing to have the guys on the show. I hope the listeners really enjoyed that because we definitely put some work into having all those guys come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, we've got a few things here left with basketball and then catch up on some horse racing.
Let's do it.
So guys, definitely want to get into some Tallman's tips. I know we've done a few the last couple of weeks, and so I'm just going to hit you with 3 of my favorites from Tallman's tips this week for the Thursday, Friday games, and then for the Saturday, Sunday games. Coming out right now, this weekend, if anybody's laying big points, and again, these are 16 good teams, the highest seeds in 11. There's one of those, and there's 1-6, but everybody else is top 5. Laying big points, you're 7-15 against the spread right now. So straight up 13-9, it's still not great, but 13-9 is going to pay out straight up better than 7-15 against the spread. The number 1 and 2 seeds, and you have every number 1 and 2 in the final matchup in the Sweet 16. So you have 8 games here, and each one of them has a 1 or a 2. They are 35-12 straight up, 28-18-1 against the spread, so 61% against the spread. But last year they were 1-3 straight up and 1-3 against the spread. So
that's interesting. Okay.
Be mindful of who you got there. I think one of the toughest games to bet this weekend is Tennessee and Creighton. Better seeded teams. So let's take Tennessee and Creighton. If Creighton's favored, better seeded teams in Sweet 16 games are 6-2 straight up and 6-2 against the spread. So if they're an underdog, let's say Tennessee is an underdog or pick them against Creighton, they're 6-2 right now. So straight up or against the spread. So that's
because they're considered the better seeded team, right? Because they're the 2 and Creighton's the 3.
Right. Yeah. So Tennessee would be would be the underdog in that game or the pick 'em. They're more likely to win.
Got it.
It's hard when you're dealing with seeded teams and then underdogs and pick 'ems to kind of describe it. So that's a Sweet 16. The last one is if you bet totals. So those are all for wins and losses. If you bet totals, games with totals of 128 or less, the under is 16-6-1, which is 73% 128 is tough to get there. That's a 64-64 game. But then again, if you look at all these games, they are, Tennessee was low scoring against Texas, another good team, but most of these games are blowing through 128. Now, let's move to Saturday and Sunday. You've got the Elite Eight. The Elite Eight has been a dangerous spot for better seeded teams. So your best seeded teams are 47-45 straight up and 33-55 against the spread since 2000. That's 38%. So that's a tough one to bet. Elite Eight's hard because the numbers go out the window when you play in the Elite Eight, especially with this field of 16. I wouldn't look at it. Cinderella teams or those not from power conferences have been good bets when they reach the Elite Eight. They're 14-12 straight up, 15-10 against the spread since 2003, 9-2-1 against the spread as underdogs of 3 points or more. So if it's a big spread, they're 9-2-1. That rounds in right at 87%. So check that out. Check your higher seeds that are favored or down by 3 points or more. You're going to be all right. Elite Eight number 1 seeds, number 3 seeds have struggled mightily against teams seeded number 4 or worse, which you only have 3 of those. Going 17-14 straight up, 8-21-2 against the spread since 2001. That's 28%. Higher number seeds against the 4s, the 5s, and the 6s, and the 11 have done horribly. So
wow, okay.
Re-listen to this so you can write it down, pay attention, take notes. But just know 8-21-2 against the spread. I think again, when you get past the Sweet 16 and through the Elite Eight, the games are going to be closer. Everybody's fighting. It's one of those things that the best of the best are there. The last 8 teams are ready to play. They're on a hot streak. You're playing tons of games in the last 2 weeks.
They're on a hot streak, and you can smell it. You can smell the Final Four. The Final Four is an experience. Austin alluded to that a little bit. I've had the privilege to go to 2. Austin alluded to that Final Four, talking about what an experience it is. I mean, he's talking about he got a chance to see 2 of the greatest college basketball games probably ever. But the Final Four is an experience for these kids. It's big time arenas, big time facilities, the pageantry, the media, all of it. And so you can smell it right then and there. So Elite Eight is a big one. So how about that for Tallman's tips and turkey stats for you guys as listeners? What a treat that was that we got a chance to get all of that knowledge. We've had all of that data broken down for you. So you are ready. You will be ready to win those group chat arguments, to fill out those picks, and also compete with your friends, because you heard it here first on the Up and Running Pod. Thank you for listening, and thank you for joining us for that. So, Justin, what a March Madness segment we've had, and we have a whole full weekend jam-packed again, Elite Eight, Sweet 16 Elite Eight games. Yeah,
it's going to be exciting. I'll tell you right now, I am locked in. As the kids say, I'm locking in. Obviously, if you can't tell, I'm rooting for the team with the A, Alabama, to beat up on University of North Carolina, and we're going to see what's going to happen with that. But
are you and PJ watching that game together? PJ's a big UNC fan.
We might. I mean, my man's got a new house. I'm hoping the home warming's this weekend, right?
Home
check
warming?
that out.
You mean housewarming?
Housewarming. I mean, it could be a home. They've got love in that house. It could be a home
fan,
now,
guys. He's an Alabama fan, guys.
Down here. We don't have houses. We have homes. But I mean, UConn, San Diego State. This is a chance for San Diego State to. Granted, they were in the title game last year, but it's a chance for them to go ahead. And I just don't. They're not there yet because they haven't been, continuous a power team. So if they go out and they stick with UConn and come away with a win, I think this solidifies them as a lot more than what people give them credit for. Illinois, Iowa State's going to be good. North Carolina, Alabama, we got a lot of love for that game. Clemson is a little dicey, but Clemson, Arizona could be good. Houston, Duke, I think, is the big game. And speaking of Duke, I want to get this in.
Big game. Big game.
Mike brings this woman up all the time for being a Duke fan. I love her to death. This is Brandy's comment about Duke. As a fan, watching this team this year hasn't been really exciting. This team has been up and down. When they're on, they're on, and when they're down, well, we lose. Yep, and they've done a lot of that this season against good teams. This team seems to be likely they aren't playing with heart, and it truly sucks to see a team that could have so much potential just flatline. As I say this, all of a sudden Duke will wake up and play true blue basketball. Hopefully the darker kind and not the baby blue. We will see Friday night when they play Houston. On the other hand, we both, Brandon and I, have been watching NC State and love it. But For someone that loves basketball, Brandy loves watching Burns doing his spins, putting in the basket, and people trying to move this brick of a man is hilarious. NC State may pull through, but Marquette is a strong team to beat. If anything, this game will have me on the edge of my seat. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I love me some Shaka Smart. I love me some Shaka Smart. He's a good man,
phenomenal coach.
I think Texas sports have a problem, and I'm glad he got away from there. He's doing his thing at Marquette, but NC State. Like Jimmy V's out there with these guys. I mean, the love that this school garnered back when he made the run to the title game. I don't know that there's a better storyline as far as a team just going on a heater, right? But
but it happens every year. You have a team in the double digits.
But this is a bigger.
They're going to run
bigger
a buzzsaw of energy in Shaka Smart.
I agree with that. This is not a normal 11 seed, right? But what I'm going to tell you is, as much as I would love to watch NC State do this and pull this off, I 100% agree with you, Mike Mills. Marquette is going to end their dream, and I'm going to say it right here with that bold prediction, by 22 points. Marquette's going to beat NC State.
Prediction.
I just don't think Burns has the stamina. So I think Marquette's going to come away big. I think the rest of the games are going to be close. The only other one that could be, or two I'll give it, is UConn over San Diego State and Clemson, Arizona over Clemson. But other than that, great slate of games Thursday and Friday. Boy, I can't wait for Saturday and Sunday.
Oh man, it's big games. I will say I am thrilled. I am super excited. But we do have baseball, and I am a huge baseball fan. Opening day is here. Opening day will be here Thursday. The Yankees are in town to play the Astros. The Yankee boys behind me. So I will be hopefully heading to the game on Saturday with my beautiful wife, and we will be going to cheer on the Yankees as they start their opening series, not home opener because we are going to be in Houston, but the opening series with the Astros. So Justin, we talked about the cold spell in sports about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Right. And now we are in probably the greatest 6-week sports stretch when you talk about March Madness, opening day in baseball, the Masters, the Derby. I mean, this is a stretch of sports that you just cannot miss.
And there's nothing. If you like a sport if you like a sport, it doesn't matter what sport it is. You've got golf, you've got horse racing, hockey playoffs, NBA playoffs, March Madness, by far the greatest experience during the year of sports. You've got baseball kicking off Thursday. You already had a set of games over in Seoul, South Korea. And you've got USFL football coming at you live in the next 6 weeks. Everything you could imagine is getting ready to happen. Not only imagine, but the Kentucky Derby, the best horse race of the year, the Masters, the best golf tournament of the year as far as history and pageantry goes. Those two events are by far some of the greatest things we're ever going to see. Not only that, you've got America's pastime kicking off today. Thursday, it's kicking off, baby. I'm so excited about it. Let's go. Red Sox, well, we're going to suck this year. So I'm going to ride with my son's team, the Giants, this year. Still go cheer on the Red Sox. Not that they have a chance either, but I'll just support him because the Squirrels are in town. But, I mean, now is the time where you get excited. And the great thing is all this leads right up into August, and we start it all over again with football. It's just it's a great time of year.
And if you're a sports fan, continue to be excited, but we will have all of your coverage across all of those sports Justin just mentioned here on the Up and Running Pod. We're so thankful that you joined us. We find this to be a privilege to be able to do this. We're very excited to do it. We put our passion, we put our efforts into it. So thank you for listening. So Justin, we mentioned all these sports, and one of them we've been talking about as we end the show always with our horse racing segment, as we lead up to the greatest 2 minutes in sports, the Kentucky Derby, the Run for the Roses. Justin, the Derby Trail is alive and well.
Yeah. We're going to do our segment with you right now. And let me tell you something. We had some stuff go on this past weekend, and that was good. But I'm really excited for this weekend coming up. This past weekend we had the
big weekend. I mean, you have monster Derby preps this weekend.
Yeah, and last weekend you had the Louisiana Derby. Cox and Pratt. Pratt was on the horse. Trainer Cox, catching freedom, wins the race. Thoughts on the Louisiana Derby, Mike?
It was good. I was really surprised to not see Sierra Leone there. So that's the horse that won the Risen Star, which is usually the lead up to the Louisiana Derby. I'm assuming Chad Brown's going to probably send Sierra Leone to either one of the New York races, or he may send him to the Bluegrass in Kentucky, which is where Chad Brown really sends a lot of his runners. He sent Good Magic a couple years there that won the Bluegrass to get in the Derby. So I think Sierra Leone goes there. But good. Catching Freedom's a good horse, strong horse. One of Cox's stable. I mean, one of his leaders in the stable for sure. So it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and you also had the Jeff Ruby Stakes endlessly with McCarthy and Rispoli on the saddle. Anything there with that horse?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeff Ruby Stakes, just the race in general, has been always looked down upon. It's always been the little brother. It's always been it's not as good as the Bluegrass. It's not as good as some of the other bigger preps that we have, the Florida Derby, Arkansas Derby, San Diego Derby. But the Jeff Ruby has been a monster indicator of horses that will hit the board in the Kentucky Derby. So pay attention to that. So horses that usually win that race or run in that race and finish in the top three typically hit the board in the Derby. They're good for that third, fourth place finish. And so there's been some monster names. So please go back and look at the history of the Jeff Ruby, because I can tell you the Jeff Ruby Stakes is a clear indicator, and we've got to start taking it more serious, that actually has strong horses, strong pedigrees running on a synthetic surface. So it's not dirt and it's not turf. It's kind of an in-between. It's an all-weather track is what they usually call it. And that surface has shown that transition from Turfway, where the Jeff Ruby is run, to Churchill Downs is a big indicator that they're going to do well. It's a big factor in when you could start handicapping horses.
So just so on that note, I'll give them to you. Endlessly, West Saratoga, and Seize the Gray were your top three there. Endlessly, West Saratoga, and Seize the Gray are people you want to put, according to Mike, you want to put them on your board for the Kentucky Derby with a win-place show bet there. All right. Covered those two races. The big two that are coming up now are the Arkansas Derby and the Florida Derby. So which one do you love more? And with both having fields with horses ready to go, and I know one of your top picks is in here, which one do you think is the better primer for the Derby?
So these are, in my opinion, neck and neck. These are, in my opinion, 1 and 2 for Derby preps. Santa Anita Derby has been weak of late. It does have some winners that are strong coming out of it. But in my opinion, the Derby winner usually comes out of the Arkansas Derby or the Florida Derby. So this, to me, is the biggest prep weekend of the year. And so I'm a big fan of Florida Derby. I think that speed translate. Oaklawn is also where American Pharoah won the Arkansas Derby, and so and also won a couple races before that at Oaklawn Park. Oaklawn Park has shown to be a very good track, translating to Churchill Downs. I'm a big Florida Derby fan. I think there's a ton of speed out of Florida and a lot of speed horses, and it can show a speed race. Forte was a horse a couple years ago. Or actually last year, we were looking forward to watching run. And so the Florida Derby, last year's winner actually got second in the Florida Derby for the Kentucky. The last year's winner of the Kentucky Derby got second in the Florida Derby last year. So it is a good indicator. I would just recommend watching the Florida Derby. I think pay attention to who wins. And Justin, I know you're going to ask it, so I'm giving you my pick. I think Fierceness bounces back, comes back on top. It is the juvenile winner, the 2-year-old champ. Fierceness comes back in a strong way. People have forgotten about this horse. And I'm telling you right now, Fierceness is going to romp in the Florida Derby.
All right. So speaking of that, he's coming back. So he's coming back, which means that he had an issue. Okay.
He had an injury. Yep.
So, when players come back, you look at Marquette now, and their star player gets hurt. He comes back, and he has a decent game. I'm not going to say it was an all-out game, but what could you normally expect? These trainers take care of these horses to where nothing is going to happen to them. They're not going to force them to be out of it. So is he back at his full potential, or do you think this is a prep race where we're going to see what he can do and then know what we have to do moving forward?
No, he's going to have to be ramped up because he needs this win to get into the Derby. He needs a win for sure to lock it up. Second would probably get him in there as well. But he's going to have him ramped up. Todd Pletcher is not playing around with fierceness. He's going to have him ramped up and ready to go. This is a monster in his stable. It's a monster for the owner, Mike Rapoli, who's a big proponent of growing the game. He also does a lot of his horses with Todd Pletcher. Mike Rapoli wants to win the Derby, and he wants to win it bad. And so fierceness is somebody that's going to be there. Irad Ortiz, who's been the champion jockey the past 2 years, usually rides for Pletcher and Rapoli. But Todd Pletcher's jockey from the beginning has always been John Velasquez. John Velasquez has won several derbies. He's won one with Todd Pletcher. He's also won one with Bob Baffert, who's also suspended for this year. But John Velasquez was the one that Todd Pletcher always picked years and years ago on the up-and-coming horses, on his top horses, on the ones that he thought had a shot. And then we've seen the transition, and Irad Ortiz has ridden for Pletcher the majority of the past 2-3 years. But interesting enough, fierceness has John Velasquez on him. Irad Ortiz is in Florida. He's riding for Mike Rapoli's other horse, which is also trained by Todd Pletcher. And so pay attention to that, but I think John Velasquez and Todd Pletcher do get it done. I think fierceness romps.
Is there anybody in the field that can, as I'm looking at it now, I don't believe anybody can really push him. Is he leaps and bounds better than this Florida Derby, even though there's some good horses in it?
So I do, in my opinion, I do. I think he's ran the best races. The only other thing that I would say is fierceness, was he just that great as a 2-year-old, and now people are catching up to him, right? Because he's growing from a 2 to 3 maturing. Yeah. You should see a leap forward, but is everybody just bunching up and coming together? That's what the main test of this Florida Derby is going to be. Is he that good? Has he progressed? And is he still leaps and bounds better than everyone? Or was he just that good as a 2-year-old, and now he's the same and everybody's catching up? So a horse to watch out for is Mike Rapoli's other horse that has Irad Ortiz on it, called Bail. It's called Bail Us Out. It's the 3 horse. That's a very strong horse. That's Mike Rapoli's other. And usually when you have a trainer owner combo, we call that the other horse if they're not the main favorite, right? And so that's the other Pletcher, the other Mike Rapoli. And so keep an eye on that, because they do have all-world jockey Irad Ortiz, who's won several Gulfstream meets, and I expect them to have a big day. But again, I am a believer in fierceness. I know a lot of people are down on fierceness, but I'm a big believer, and I think fierceness comes out on top.
Before we get to the Arkansas Derby, I want to talk about that point. It has nothing to do with anything else about the races and the jockey, the trainer-owner dynamic there. So in NASCAR, Rick Hendrick has 4 cars. And if anybody that's ever followed NASCAR or really doesn't, you know who Jeff Gordon is. Well, when Jeff Gordon won his titles, other drivers would come in, Jimmy Johnson. So Jimmy Johnson would get the best money, the best parts. This is what was believed in the community, that fans, not necessarily in the garage, because Jimmy Johnson won 5 titles in a row. Dale Earnhardt comes, he doesn't necessarily get it. Casey Kane, does Todd Pletcher, Brad Cox, they train these horses the same with whatever the horse shows them? So if the horse shows them this is what I can do they train them the same as they would any other horse, or does fierceness get preferential treatment over Bail Us Out?
No, absolutely not. So no, those trainers that are top end like that, Pletcher, Cox, Bob Baffert, Chad Brown, they're going to train every horse in their barn according to what that horse needs, right? Some are speed horses, some are long distance horses, some are sprinters, some are turf. Everyone's going to be a little different. A lot of horses also sometimes don't like working out in the morning. Some are monsters in the morning, but they just don't show up on the track. Some are game time horses where and trainers will use this term, they're professionals. You don't have to put much into them. You need to let them know what's going on around them, put a little speed into them, and then let them show up on game day. Others, you have to work with constantly, right? They are very temperamental. They need a lot of attention. They need a lot of treatment. They need more massages. So you do what the horse tells you it's needing, right? What signs it shows you. I'll never forget that one of the best stories is Gary Stevens is a Hall of Fame jockey, rode one of the few fillies to ever win the Kentucky Derby. Now remember, we talk about fillies, they run in the Oaks on Friday, and the Colts run on Saturday. And so every once in a while you have a filly where a trainer will put a female to run with the boys because they just believe in it. So it's happened a few times. One of the most famous one was Winning Colors, trained by D. Wayne Lucas, who's a Hall of Fame trainer. They call him the coach. D. Wayne Lucas, who also is, by the way, is Todd Pletcher's mentor. Just a little fun-filled fact for everyone. But D. Wayne Lucas trains, and he used to say all the time, Winning Colors was so temperamental. You had to kind of like ease up to her. Gary Stevens had to be really aggressive and strong because he had other riders on her, and she wouldn't have it because they were a little weak-handed, right? Or they weren't assertive. They weren't the one being in control. And Winning Colors was like, you're not much, right? But Gary Stevens was a strong rider, known to have great hands, and so that's where the trainer will pay attention to the horse and their temperaments. And ended up being where Gary Stevens got out front, stayed out front, and romped in the Derby. Held on at the wire and led Gate the Wire with a monster speed horse and Winning Colors. So in that regard, to your point, they're not going to train. They're not going to focus all their efforts, right? You think about a big time trainer with an NBA prospect, right? You got a kid from, let's say, Gonzaga or maybe even a smaller mid-major like a Richmond. And then now that trainer also has one of the two Kentucky guys. They're going to put a lot of their effort in the Kentucky guys and not focus a lot of time on the Richmond guys.
Right.
Horse racing is not like that. The horse may need a lot more hands-on, may need a lot less. It just depends on what happens.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's good info there because it just, you don't know. And I know you're in this world a lot. So appreciate that. Now, for the Arkansas Derby, the first question I'm going to ask is Baffert's got a horse in this race that you feel is a good horse, could be a great horse. There's been a lot of talk with the Masters and them letting a lot of the live guys in, some of the ones that aren't ranked because of the way that's going. Not that the Derby is going to do this, and obviously a different sport, but does Muth, could he win the Kentucky Derby if he was in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Muth is good. Probably the second best horse in Baffert's barn. Nysos would be the top dog in Baffert's barn. And we haven't seen Nysos much because it's been a little quiet. He's battled either a fever. There's been some mysterious of why Nysos hasn't been running, but
he's been drugged.
And that's the other thing too. Baffert's been linked to a lot of drug accusations, been found guilty on a lot of that stuff as well. That's why he's serving a suspension right now, that he can't run horses at Churchill Downs. And so that's the thing. The Derby is part of the Triple Crown, but the Derby is like Augusta is from the majors. Augusta is part of the four majors, but the Masters is heads and above the other three tournaments. The Derby is head and shoulders above the Preakness and the Belmont, but it is part of the Triple Crown. Now, Baffert is not banned from the Triple Crown. He's only banned from running at Churchill Downs. He's not banned from the Derby. He's banned from running at Churchill Downs. So that's the interesting part about this. So to answer your question, yes. So if Muth wins, by the way, what happens is they will vacate those points. And instead of it sliding down, it will vacate those points. And so if Muth wins, the 100 point will go away and the points will continue going down. So getting second doesn't get you 100 points here. It's only going to get you the second place points. So Muth definitely could win. But again, Baffert's banned. My assumption is Baffert is running in this race to get the grade 1 win, which is a monster win. It's a big purse as well as the Arkansas Derby. It's a prestigious title that he's won several times. So I think he's running it for his owners because, again, these owners are losing their chance with this horse to run the Derby because it's trained by Bob Baffert. Now, and here's the thing for the listeners to know. They could have moved their horse to a different trainer, and they chose not to. So by keeping it with Baffert past the deadline, they cannot run the Derby.
Wow. It really isn't good for him.
No, it's not good for the sport either.
I just wish there was a way he could, they do this with guys in pro sports now, you get tested, you have an all out game, it's one of those things like it's over for you. You're going to get tested that week, something like that. So we'll see moving forward. Again, we'll see moving forward what happens to him. But I wanted to know about that because that's important because you look at the race and, we've been talking about horse racing for a couple of weeks. It's got a lot of guys in there. Who do you think comes out on top? All right. And who do you think might be not necessarily a dark horse, but someone that people are, like Fierceness. He's had problems. Right now he needs to really put some points in this weekend. I just looked at the top 10. He's not there. But who do you have as a winner? And then who do you have as someone that might come in and surprise everybody?
So I think Timberlake wins. I think Brad Cox is rounding into form. Brad Cox wants to win a Derby. That keep in mind, Brad Cox won when Bob Baffert was disqualified. Brad Cox got second, and so his horse was elevated to the winner. So that's Brad Cox's Derby win. Brad Cox is from about a stone's throw away from Churchill Downs. You could probably hit driver there, Justin, to his house. And so he grew up around the corner from Churchill Downs. So he wants to win a Derby, more than any race out there. So I do think Timberlake wins against a Brad Cox, Flavien Prat again combo. I think Timberlake is a monster. I think Timberlake gets a chance to win. He has the great running style for the Derby, which is key. He's kind of a stalker. He's up there going to press the pace, and he's going to pounce once they hit the stretch. So I think Timberlake gets it done.
Okay. And what's left? We've got a little over a month left. We've got 5 weeks. What's left that you want to see? And what race are you most excited for coming up after this weekend?
So what's left? I think the Arkansas Derby underneath horses are going to be a big key, right? So you got Mystic Dan and Just Steel. You talked about Just Steel when we first started doing this segment about he was going to show up and actually beat Timberlake. So I think Just Steel is a contender. However, he did come up empty in the Rebel. Could have been an off race, so you could see Just Steel blow the doors off him in the Arkansas Derby. If he doesn't, you're going to see Just Steel back up to the Pat Day Mile, which will be on the undercard of the Derby on Saturday, which is for 3-year-olds only, and it only runs a mile. That's why it's called the Pat Day Mile, named after a great jockey, Pat Day. But that's where a lot of 3-year-olds who don't make the Derby, or they didn't have the distance to get there, they're going to run in the Pat Day Mile, which is the underneath, which is a fantastic race to watch on Derby Day. So to your overall point, I think what I'm looking for is someone needs to step away from this field. This field's getting bunched. There are a lot of horses that are good. They're beating each other. Every time there's a new winner, you're like, oh, that's the Derby horse, right? We did it with Sierra Leone. We did it with Chasing Freedom. We're doing it with Timberlake. There's a lot of horses that are getting if Fierceness romps in the Florida Derby, you're going to see him skyrocket up the Derby odds as well. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a horse take charge, and I want to see a horse separate themselves from the field. I will tell you, if Fierceness doesn't do it, I'm afraid this is going to be one of the most wide open derbies anyone's seen, which is going to be just who does the better training job to get up to that point. Because now it's not going to really come down to the horse. It's going to come down more to the trainer and jockey. And that point, I'll probably make my selections based on who the rider is and the style of the horse, and not necessarily the actual horse. And that's a rarity because I usually don't do that. But you got to have someone step away from this field. With that said, my caveat would be, I don't think this is a very good 3-year-old class. I just don't. I think we've had a lot of really decent horses, but I think everyone's trying to make everybody in a Derby contender. And sometimes you just have sprinters. Sometimes you have milers. And so we're not seeing enough of that because everybody wants to have their 3-year-old be a Derby horse. Sometimes they're just not a Derby horse. So you're seeing a lower level 3-year-old class because we're pushing them to be that. Where this happens every year in the summer, you're going to see great miling horses, great sprinters, because they were on the Derby trail, but they're not as good.
Yeah. That's the I really agree with you there. I just, some of the stuff that we've talked about the last couple of weeks, some of the stuff that, you and I just know personally, it's not one where I'm sitting here going, yeah, like I'm excited for the Derby. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
It's a great race, but it's not like a lot of times I get excited. There's going to be not necessarily a Triple Crown winner. We've had a few in the last 10 years, but is it going to be something where we just see a feat? Like right now, we'll just use baseball. I want to go see Shohei Ohtani play. I don't want to go see him this year because he's not pitching, but I would love to go see him when he pitches and then gets up there and hits a 455-foot bomb. But you want to see it when you're just like, this is it right here. Like this is why I love this sport. This horse might go off at 1-1, but he just romps the field. And that's great if he comes out with a good time. And that's part of sports. You're going to have years where they're off. We've seen it a lot, but when it's one of those ones that it only happens once a year, it's not
Sure.
like you get 3 races in the Triple Crown, but the big one is once a year.
Well, and
It's
also
different.
those horses can only run in that one time. So you talk about like
Yeah.
you can only run it in your 3-year-old season. So as a horse, you have one shot. It is the first Saturday in May in your 3-year-old season, and that's it. So these owners that are holding on to a Nysos, who could be a potential Derby winner, they're holding on and being loyal to Bob Baffert. And I respect the loyalty, but what if he really is guilty? What if he really had drugged a lot of horses and caused some harm and cheated and won, and now you're backing him and you're loyal to him? And I'm not, listen, we're all innocent until proven guilty. I agree there. But this is a monster of a horse that you didn't want to trade to another trainer. So you're losing the chance to win a Derby. And you're also depriving that horse from being on a huge pedestal as far as a Derby winner. That shoots you up as far as being recognized, widely known in the sport and widely known outside of the sport. I mean, that kind of transcends you into, that's a word I'm going to transcend you into a different stratosphere as far as a champion athlete when you're a Derby winner. So you're depriving that horse of that. So it's frustrating to see. I hope Churchill Downs and Bob Baffert figured it out. Baffert did dismiss his lawsuit against Churchill Downs in hopes of being able to compete this year in the Derby. It didn't work out, so we'll see what happens next year.
With that, we have just a couple more questions for you, and they're quick hitters. The Arkansas Derby, the Florida Derby are this weekend. You have next weekend, you have the Santa Anita, the Bluegrass, and the Wood. And in 2 weeks, you have Lexington. Are the horses running on the 30th? Are they running the 6th or the 13th?
No, not at all.
If Fierceness struggles and doesn't earn a top 3 slot this weekend, does he have to run again? Because he only gets 15 or 10 points.
Yeah, so he wouldn't run in the Derby. So they're never going to circle him back and run in a big one. That's a lot of travel. That's a lot of shipping. The horse won't also be ready and fresh enough to run that type of race that young as an age. If you're a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, they've seen you wheel back in 10 days, 11 days and run a race. That's fine. But to run a young 3-year-old in definitely not going to do it in 7, but do it in 14 is way too much. Plus travel. A lot of times they wheel the horse back is what it's called. It's the same track. So you're never going to see that. What would happen is Fierceness would just miss the Derby, maybe run the Pat Day Mile, or just freshen up for his summer campaigns, a 3-year-old, and try to go pick off the Preakness or try to go pick off the Belmont.
Have you ever seen a horse that you were this excited about miss the Derby?
Yes, several times. Probably the biggest one for me was Maxfield. Maxfield was a champion 2-year-old. He got hurt. He didn't run the Derby, and I thought he would have romped. He had a monster 3-year-old season towards the end, and it was a great 4-year-old champion horse. Maxfield was somebody that I was really disappointed not to see run the Derby. The other one that comes to mind is an Arkansas Derby winner in Omaha Beach. Omaha Beach romped in the Arkansas Derby, was my top Derby pick that year. Austin's little brother went to Arkansas. He always picks the Arkansas Derby winner. And so he was on the Arkansas Derby winner, and he scratched the day of the Derby. And it was just really disappointing to see because I think he would have romped that field.
And lastly, about horse racing. In 36 days, 37 days, we are going to have the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby. In all accounts, it's going to be an open field. I just don't believe it's going to be a smoke show for anybody. But let's talk Triple Crown. In Mike Mills's life, you've seen Triple Crown winners. You've seen great races.
2 of them, yep.
Would you rather a Triple Crown winner, a Triple Crown winner, or 3 record-breaking performances individually in each race?
So the question is, you're saying that the record-breaking performances were from 3 different horses?
3 different horses, yes.
Would I rather, or what do I think is going to happen? Because those are two different answers.
No. Would you rather? You've
Okay.
seen 2 Triple Crowns?
Oh, I'd rather see the 3 record-breaking performances. I mean,
Me
to
too.
see someone break Secretariat's 3 records, because he owns all 3. Keep in mind,
Yeah.
Secretariat is the greatest racehorse to ever live, and in my opinion, a top 5 athlete of all time. People can argue all they want to, but what he did in his sport is one of the greatest accomplishments across all sports. And so I think what Secretariat did is unremarkable. I don't think his records will ever be broken, but to that point, would I like to see it? Absolutely. Do I think there ever going to be 3 different 3-year-olds run 3 record-breaking performances? Never. So I would say the more likely outcome would be a Triple Crown, because I actually don't think Secretariat's records will ever be broken.
Oh, that is bold right there. If the racing stays natural, there's no way it happens. They don't make them. They've whittled down his sperm so much it's just not going to happen. But what I will say is I would hate to see it, and at the same time love to see it. His statue is coming to Ashland. Next time you're in town, we'll be able to ride and check it out. But needless to say, I love me some Secretariat.
Same.
He grew up not far from where we live. We grew
Yep.
up. So it's really cool. But that is Horse Racing with Mike this week.
Justin, what a great show. What a phenomenal show we had this week. Listen, for the listeners, I know we went a little long. If you hung with us throughout the whole horse racing segment, we're coming to a close. We definitely appreciate it. Justin and I are so grateful and thankful for all the support we've gotten, the fan comments, the interactions. And if you haven't reached out to us, please reach out to us. Let us know what you think of the show. We're on X at Up and Running Pod, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to us. Reach out to us, because Justin and I are so grateful and thankful.
Yeah. Get ready. I mean, the sports are carrying on. You're going to get more of us. We're going to have some fun the next couple of weeks with March Madness. And then you have horse racing. You've got the Masters. You've got a lot going on. It was a pleasure tonight. Our guests, want to thank Austin for coming on. Want to thank Zach for coming on. Really great segment. I hope the listeners like being introduced to Zach and some of his craziness. Watch for your hot dogs this week. Watch out for those 7-Eleven big bites. They might knock an hour off.
Get your hot dogs ready. So for everyone else, listen, this is Mike always saying, be kind, be humble, always be grateful. Justin's going to go get a hot dog. Everybody else, enjoy the rest of your day. Justin, it's been an outstanding show.
Awesome show, man. Roll Tide, beat up on them heels at Bama Turk 46. We'll see ya. Have a good day.